I'm absolutely delighted to welcome back to the Manchester branch one of our previous guest speakers. I'm particularly interested in her subject matter today because I didn't think I needed branding. And I thought branding was quite painful, especially when it comes straight out of the fire, but I'm sure I'm going to be re-educated today. So on that basis, and I'm going to let Laura do her own introduction. It's my absolute pleasure to welcome back Laura Aucott from the Executive Network Group. Hi, Laura.
Hello, Chris. Thank you so much for having me back.
You're welcome. Over to you.
Lovely. So, afternoon, everybody. So, as Chris said, my name is Laura Aucott. I am the brand leader and head of contract at HSE Recruitment, part of Executive Network Group. So, for those of you that don't know me, hopefully a lot of you do, we obviously do health and safety recruitment. I've been in the industry for a decade now for my sins, and one of my absolute favourite subjects, in addition to health and safety, is the topic of personal branding. So I'm really pleased to be able to share a bit of information with you here today, hopefully give you some information on why personal branding is important as a health and safety professional, the different kind of ways we can go about it, and hopefully some action points that you can take away. So first things first, you're thinking, why on earth is personal branding important to me as a health and safety professional? You know what you're doing, you're good at your job. Why do you even need to care about this? So there are a number of reasons why personal branding is very important. I'm going to go through what I think are probably the three most important ones that we should be focusing on. And the first one massively is about attracting talent into your business and your company. Everybody knows that you need to get really good people on board to be able to do things in a good way and build a good culture. And having a strong personal brand as a safety professional is really going to help you do that. And let me explain a little bit about why. So if we think about some very famous companies that we all know very well, so for example, Virgin, Apple, and Facebook, really strong brands as a company. They obviously attract people. People do want to go and work for them. But what I think is probably more important about those brands are the people behind it. So you obviously have Richard Branson, Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg. They are intrinsically tied to that brand. They are the face of it. They are incredibly successful, incredibly knowledgeable in their field. And that makes them someone that people want to emulate. They want to be near them. They want to work with them. It's a very attractive proposition for a company. So this is really tied into something called the halo effect. Now, I have no idea if you would have heard of this before, but the main concept of the halo effect is that when you have a perception of someone that is really good, you think, oh, that person is great at A. It sort of bleeds into everything else that they do, and you will naturally kind of assume that they're pretty good at everything else they do. So the reason this is so important in terms of branding is if you as a safety professional have a very strong personal brand, people are looking at you and saying, right, I like what that person does, they really know their stuff. That's naturally going to bleed outwards into the company that you work for, and that's going to make them a really attractive proposition for people to come and join. So the halo effect was actually coined by a psychologist called Edward Thorndike, and it was back in the 1920s. And it came about because he was looking at the interactions between commanding officers and their soldiers. And he figured this out, that once they had a good impression of someone, they were much more likely to forgive them other things and think quite well of them in other areas. So the halo effect is, for example, the reason that celebrities can, cheat on their wives or fudge their tax returns, and we kind of let them get away with it because we like them. So this is a really handy thing to have in your arsenal. If people like you, they know what you're doing, they want to work with you, they want to emulate you, you can put more controversial stuff out there, you can push the boundaries a little bit more, and they're probably going to let you get away with it. So really useful in terms of attracting people. We talk a lot in health and safety as well at the moment about trying to bring new people into the industry, you know, trying to get Generation Z excited about health and safety, trying to get some fresh, passionate people. And again, this is absolutely the way to do that. The thing about Gen Z, and I am going to generalize a little bit, so apologies if anyone is Gen Z in the audience and doesn't agree with this, but the main thing with them is the way they access information is quite different to how we've been used to doing it. They're the first generation that really has grown up with social media at their fingertips. They're very used to taking information from different sources and combining it together to get a picture of a person or a thing. So again, the stronger your personal brand, the more that's going to bleed out and the more that's going to be attractive to people in that sort of age group. So hopefully that's made a little bit of sense there for you. I thought I'd show you an example of someone who does this quite well at the moment, who has created a strong personal brand and it's helped them with their attraction. So this is a gentleman called Ian Stacey. So Ian is currently head of health and safety at Action for Children. He previously was head of safety at ZSL, which is the Zoological Society London. So London Zoo is what he looked after, and the associated companies with it. So we did some recruitment for Ian when he was at ZSL. And obviously, again, London Zoo, quite an attractive brand as it is. But what we found was it was massively him that people were buying into. They were checking him out on social media. They were looking at different blog pieces and vlogs that he'd put out. And he was the reason that they wanted to join. So if you go and have a look at his LinkedIn page, he won't mind. You can tell him I sent you. He's got some great stuff on there. So things like blogs he's written about, some initiatives they've done internally. He's got videos from awards that they've entered. He's got pieces that he's done with NIBOSH where he's been talking about, you know, his qualification route and his journey. So all quite simple stuff and absolutely stuff that you can do. And I will give you some pointers on how to do this later on. But definitely something that just makes him a really, really strong brand, makes him a very attractive person for people to want to work with, and you know, a much easier sell. So that is reason number one why this is so important. If you want to get fresh, dynamic, exciting new people into your company, you've got to get this right. The second reason personal branding is really, really important is it's massively tied into your internal communications. Now, we all know how important internal communications are in health and safety, but it can be quite difficult to get things right, particularly in a large organization where people are in multiple countries, you know, very different environments, and you're trying to get a consistent message out. That's quite hard to do. Creating a very strong personal brand for yourself and creating a brand for safety and putting that out there is really, really going to help you with that internal communication side of things. So I thought I would show you again an example of someone who did this really, really well. Now, Merlin, I'm sure you are all aware of the backstory with Merlin. Massive company, you know, they have over 100 attractions in multiple countries. They welcome millions and millions of visitors every year. And they, after the Smiler accident or incident in 2016, they had a real struggle on their hands in terms of health and safety. Externally, absolutely, but also internally, people were really, you know, upset by what had happened, and they were struggling to buy into the concept of safety because it hadn't worked in their eyes, hadn't protected people. So they had to do something to really, really get people back on board. So what they did is they branded health and safety. They created a brand called Protecting the Magic. I'm going to show you a little bit of what they did, and then we'll talk a bit more about it.
We're Merlin. We love thrills. The bigger and brighter and more unique, the better. They're magic, they're memorable, most of all, they're fun, but only when they're safe. We aim to deliver fun and magic through rock-solid, gold-plated standards in health, safety and security. For this, we've got systems and practices, and they cover everything. Designing rides, running attractions, you name it. Whatever we're doing, there's no let up in our focus on health, safety and security. Ever. At all. You could say we're obsessed, and we're proud. This obsession, it's in our DNA, and it's staying there. We call it protecting the magic.
So this was something they launched. They launched it as a brand internally, protecting the magic. And then they did loads of interactive things alongside it. So things to get the business re-engaged in safety again. They kicked off with a health and safety week. They had loads of different competitions. They were tying everything back into this concept of protecting the magic. And you'll notice the language in the video as well is really, really definitive. It's, you know, obsessed, gold plated, things like that are really really showing them how proud they are and how much they want to get this right moving forward. And this did a lot in helping them you know, progress after the sort of incident. So let's go to the next slide. So yeah, point one was bringing people into your business, really, really important for you guys. Point two is helping you develop, you know, really good internal communication. But point three is, you know, the one I think personally is most important. Having a really strong personal brand and getting this right makes you more visible. And that's going to help health and safety, the perception of health and safety in general better. It's also going to help you when you're looking for roles and things like that. You know, the health and safety world is very, very competitive at the moment. And to be honest, a lot of CVs are very, very similar. What makes you stand out is you. So how you sell that is going to be a really important factor when you're looking at roles and increasing that visibility. So, you know, what can it do for you? That's what everybody wants to know. You know, if I follow your tips at the end of the presentation and I increase my personal brand, what's in it for me? It's going to help you become a leader in your field. The more prominent you are, the stronger your brand, the more people see, hear of you, the more they're going to consider you one of the best in the industry. And that has multiple, you know, good implications for you in terms of your role, in terms of pay rises and things like that. Again, it's going to help you bring the best people in. When you've got a good team working for you, it's going to make your life a hell of a lot easier. It's really good for leverage within your current companies. So I apologize if anyone has signed up to watch this with their boss or their employee. But when you've got a strong personal brand, you can really use that to help your position within a company. If your company knows that you are a leader in your field, you are someone that everyone in the industry goes to, they want to speak to you, they want to find out more. There's going to be a lot of respect there for you and what you do, and it's going to help them in terms of creating their brand. So they're going to want to keep hold of you. They're going to want to make sure that you're happy. And it can also create completely new opportunities that you may never have even thought of before you started doing this personal branding journey. So a good example of that is myself and my kind of journey. So I have been in health and safety recruitment for 10 years, absolutely love it, love the day job. But about 4 years ago, I started developing my own personal brand, going out, speaking more at events, you know, at webinars and forums and things like that, doing lots of blogging, doing video blogs and creating a bit of buzz for myself. I mean, that was great leverage for me internally. You know, it definitely helps me be recognized as someone that's important to the business. But it created a completely new role for me, the role of brand leader, which meant that I not only got to do the recruitment that I loved, but I also got to take control of all the other exciting things that I like doing, like the social media and the marketing aspect. So you don't know what could come out of this. It's a really, really good opportunity. Some background research, because I know a lot of you do like to do some research and do some reading on the subjects you're interested in. This is a great book that you can go away and have a look at, The Visible Expert. This book was a group of researchers who basically went and they found 1,000 people who are known to be experts in their field. But more importantly, they also spoke to a number of the people that those people were trying to engage with and trying to get buy-in from. And they did a lot of research talking to them and trying to find out what made them stand out, what made them good, what made people buy into them. So really, really interesting read. And what came out of this is that there are 5 different levels of expert that I thought we'd sort of talk through. So level 1 is the resident expert. So resident expert is, I expect, most safety professionals. You know, you are the expert within your company. People know what you do. They respect you. They know you know your topic. And that's kind of where that ends. So a lot of safety people are at level 1, resident expert. Level 2, we start to up the ante a little bit and we get onto local heroes. So this is where you are starting to be known slightly outside of your company. So whether you're known within the industry, you know, you work in construction, other construction companies are starting to hear about you, starting to see the good things that you do, starting to come to you for advice. Level 3, rising stars, is where we really start to get interesting. And this is where you are starting to really make a name for yourself. You're doing a lot of blogging, you're speaking at events, people are really seeking you out because they know that you know what you're talking about. Level 4 is my favorite, industry rock stars. Now, I know the term is a bit cheesy, but if we're honest, who doesn't want to be a rock star? I mean, I definitely wanted to be a rock star when I was a kid. And unfortunately, I discovered I had absolutely no discernible musical talent whatsoever and went into recruitment. But we absolutely can create some industry rock stars in health and safety. There are a few of them around at the moment. There are names that you'll see quite regularly, people like John Green that you'll see talking quite a lot. But there are so many of you out there that have the ability to get to this level. So this is being asked to speak at IOSH conference, for example, and things like that. This is really being recognised as one of the best in the UK. And the only step above that is taking it to a global level. Now, I'll be honest, I don't think there's many people probably in the health and safety industry that have got to global superstardom just yet. Maybe someone like Sidney Dekker or somebody like that. Or possibly even in John Green is kind of edging towards that. Global superstars is just industry rock stars ramped up. So this is, you know, worldwide recognition. You know, I think we should all aim for it, but I personally love the industry rock stars. You know, everybody in health and safety knows who you are. That's a pretty good level for us to get to. So I've got a call to action for you. I want you to have a look at these different levels and identify where you think you are at the moment. And you don't need to push to get all the way to global, just push to try and get up one more step. So if you're a resident expert, try and get yourself up to local hero. But how do you do that? And this is obviously the bit that you're all interested in. How on earth do I even begin creating this personal brand? We know it's important. We know why we should do it. I'm interested. I want to, but how do I start? So here's some action points for you. The easiest thing for you to do and the easiest place to start is just with basic blogs. And basic blogging is just opinion pieces. They don't have to be long. They do not have to be complicated. An opinion piece is just generally, I saw this. This is what I thought about it. What do you think? Really, really easy thing to write. Everybody can do this. And they get very good engagement because people want to have a conversation. They want to talk to you about things. So I started out like this, just doing sort of basic blogs, opinion pieces. And this was, I think, the first or second one that I wrote. Literally just a couple of paragraphs. I don't know if anyone remembers this advert. It was the Beans Means Heinz advert where they had the tin cans and they were playing them like musical instruments. And there were 3 complaints that they thought it was unsafe, that children were going to replicate it and cut themselves, and the advert was pulled, which I didn't necessarily agree with. So I just wrote a little opinion piece on it. You know, this is the situation, this is what's happened, this is what I think, what do you think? And this has got some of the best engagement out of the pieces that I've ever written. It's so simple, so easy. Everybody could do this. So I would really encourage you to go away and try this, just a little paragraph or something. And I'm always more than happy to read things. If people want to send them to me, I will happily have a look over and try and give you some advice. Someone who's doing this really, really well is a guy called Dave Foy. So go and have a look at him. Again, he won't mind you checking out his LinkedIn profile. You can tell him that I sent you. He started doing some basic blogging, just talking about a journey that he was going through in health and safety. And that was his journey to a ROSPA award. So he wrote just a simple little piece about, I'm thinking of entering. Does anyone have advice? Can I get some conversations going, some mentoring going? He then wrote a piece about, the application had gone in. This is how I found it. This is the sort of thing that we did. And then fantastically, a piece when they won the award last year. So again, this is content that a lot of you are going to have at your fingertips. This isn't stuff you have to go away and think up and try and come up with loads of fancy ideas. You have this stuff already. It's what you're doing in your day-to-day. So just start telling us about it. Start talking to us and telling us your journey, because that's what we want to know. Mentoring schemes, I think, are a fantastic way of you building your personal brand. People get really tied into the social media of it all with personal branding. And don't get me wrong, social media, absolutely important. You do need to get to grips with it. But there's something to be said for still having one-on-one interactions with people. So there are some fantastic mentoring schemes out there that you can look into. I know ROSPA does one. I know RRSM does one that we sponsor. I'm sure IOSH can give you some direction as to who to speak to or set you up with some people. But sitting down with someone one-on-one and sharing that knowledge is something I think that we are guilty of not doing all the time. I think health and safety people have sometimes siloed themselves a little bit and kind of held onto your knowledge, hoping that kind of makes you, that makes you employable, that they can't get rid of you if you know all the info. And that needs to stop now. We need to be sharing best practice. We need to be talking to each other and having those conversations with peers. So mentoring is a great way to do that. And there are, again, some really good examples of people that have been through mentoring schemes and have really increased their personal brand. People like Hugh Maxwell is a great example of that, and someone that I see people talking about all the time because of his involvement in these sort of schemes. Peer-to-peer knowledge sharing, similar to mentoring, but just on a slightly different tack. So a good example of this is I went to a forum last year, and someone was telling a story about their experience at an IOSH branch meeting, where they turned up and they stood up and did a little speech about what they'd been doing at their company and what they were interested in. And then said, look, I'm always willing to learn. I want to know more. I want to share best practice. And they asked people from the local IOSH branch to come on site with them and come and have a little tour and do a little audit and see if there was anything that they could spot that they hadn't thought of and share that knowledge. And that person, that did wonders for their personal brand within that network, and definitely bumped them up to a local hero. And obviously helped to make health and safety better because of that knowledge sharing. So definitely something I think we should be considering more. Trying to get involved in your company LinkedIn page. So not just focusing on yours, but on what your company does. If your company is committed to health and safety and wants to put it first, that should bleed through absolutely everything that is coming off their social media. So even just getting in touch with the people that do the marketing or do the social media of your company and saying, look, I've written a little blog, I've done a little opinion piece, can you reshare that through the company page? Even if you're feeling brave, asking, okay, could I take the page over for 24 hours? Can I share the stuff I'm interested in? Can I share some of the great stuff that we've been doing internally? Because again, because of the halo effect, what you're doing is going to bleed into what the company does, and everybody's going to think that you're the best. So I would definitely encourage you to try and get involved with that. And then public speaking. So this is the one that everybody hates, and I completely understand. It is not for everyone. You don't have to do this, but it makes a huge impact on your personal brand when you start standing up in public and start talking to people. I understand it can feel quite intimidating. If you want some hints and tips on public speaking, I'm not professing to be an expert in that at all, but it is something that I do quite often. So please get in touch with me. My contact details will be at the end of this, and I'll try and give you some advice. I will pass on one bit of advice to you that was given to me when I first started public speaking, that works a treat. So the problem a lot of people have when they stand up to address an audience or a group of people for the first time is it provokes a very natural fight or flight response. And then your body is filled with adrenaline, which creates a physical shake, or your voice shakes, or your hands shake, or something like that, that kind of shows that you're nervous. So when you're going to speak for the first time, if you're feeling a little bit shaken, stand there, plant your feet shoulder width apart, and take a deep breath to center yourself, really kind of ground yourself, and then squeeze your bum cheeks. Because it is physically impossible for you to shake while you are squeezing your bum cheeks. Now, I don't know why that works, but I promise you, it works an absolute treat. It will just take away that physical sign of nerves. It makes you feel more grounded, and it'll help you with the public speaking aspect. You don't have to do that forever. I promise you, I'm not doing that now. You do get used to it, but it's a very good tip for people when they're starting out. In terms of public speaking, there are so many options for you in health and safety to get involved. A great one is IOSH Conference. IOSH Conference is always looking for submissions for people to come along and tell them about their journey. We often run the career zone at the IOSH Conference as well, and we have a small theatre, and we're always willing for people to approach us and say, look, I've done this. I think it's really interesting. I'd love to tell people about it. So please approach people, go and speak to people at your local branches, speak to people like us, ask for those opportunities. Branch meetings, they've obviously at the Manchester Northwest branch, they've set up a fantastic lineup of speakers for you this year. Stick your hand up and get involved. Like I said, again, it doesn't have to be anything too in-depth, but just sharing that little bit of knowledge is really going to make a huge difference for you and hopefully for the industry. Roundtable events are really great for you to get involved with, but the important thing with roundtables is when you turn up, it is a small crowd. Roundtables tend to be 10, 15 people, and so often I go to these and everybody sits there in silence and they don't say anything. Please stick your hand up and start talking and getting involved. Again, all these little things will just really help build that brand. And then finally, seminars. So, we run a lot of seminars with our HSE leaders group. I know Pinsent Mason and people like that do lots of them as well. They're always looking for specialists. So there are loads and loads of opportunities. When you get to that point that you feel comfortable with the public speaking, there are plenty of opportunities for you guys to get involved. And hopefully take yourself from, a local hero up to a global superstar. So thank you very much. Hopefully that has been a little bit informative. It really was a very quick journey through personal branding. So if you have any questions that we don't have time to cover today, my contact details are here, and please feel free to get in touch with me.
Brilliant. Laura, you're a rock star.
I knew I would be one day, Chris. I knew I'd get there.
I can only say there's so much love for you on the chat. We're going to have to print some of this off for you. But
thank you.
Some of the comments that have been coming out are just brilliant.
That's lovely. Thank you very much, Chris.
I've heard you speak before, but I can definitely see you've improved. And I've been watching you on LinkedIn as well. Some of the blogs that you do are absolutely brilliant. Right. We've got a couple of questions, starting with, hi Laura, can we say halo effect is similar to a nudge approach?
Yeah, I absolutely would agree. Very, very similar in the mentality behind it. So hopefully something that you'd be very comfortable with. I would imagine a lot of you are very comfortable with the nudge approach. The halo effect isn't complicated. There's nothing very complicated about it. It's just human behavior. That's all it is. And in health and safety, we do study a lot of human behavior, that comes into it a lot. So again, none of this should be things that you find scary or off-putting. It's just seeing it in a different light, I guess. Would you agree, Chris?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I'm just reading some of the chat, and Dave Foy is blushing, by the way.
Oh, is Dave there? Hi, Dave. Sorry, I should have told you I was referencing you.
Dave is in. He's one of our local heroes, and you know I have been watching his career and his online presence as well. But you're absolutely right, and that's a great example. And I know Dave, and I know he'll be definitely gushing now. He's had his name mentioned several times. Another question: are there any formal training? Is there any formal training related to personal branding that you could recommend?
It's a very interesting question. What I would suggest to whoever asked that and whoever is interested is actually if you could send me an email, because there is loads of it. The problem is trying to pick out what's good, because there are a lot of different courses out there. I've done a few. The one that I found most useful was actually doing some training with a TED Talk expert. That was specifically for the public speaking, but it definitely helped me in a lot of areas of my life, actually, and just in kind of how I address the everyday. If you just Google it, there are hundreds and hundreds of different courses out there, but like I said, you've got to kind of look at the quality. So if you want to drop me an email, I'll dig out a few that I recommend and I'll absolutely drop them across to you.
Brilliant. Just a comment from Quasi Ahmed. Excellent presentation. Very informative and motivating. So you've already motivated somebody today.
Good. That's what I want. I want some motivation.
The 5 levels are international terms. Sorry, the 5 levels are international terms, or are they just defined by a particular organisation?
So I think what the question means is, are these terms for within your company or externally, if I'm correct there? Yeah, these are terms for internationally. This isn't just, you know, what level you can get to within your own company. This is moving outside of that. So I would expect everybody to be a level 1 resident expert within your own company. That's kind of a given for a health and safety professional. When you're then moving up the ladder, that's now taking you outside of that. That's taking you into the wider audience. You know, the local one is usually more about similar companies, similar people. When you're getting up to industry rockstar, that's when it's more sort of UK wide, and then obviously global is global, which hopefully we'll get there one day, Chris.
Absolutely, absolutely. I was just thinking which rock star I'd like to be, and coming back to Gene Vincent from The Kiss.
Yes. Yeah.
Are you aware of any services that are willing to provide guidance on CV developments that are not commercially based and that can assist with the brand development at the most basic level?
Yes, me. So loads of people ask me this about CV development and things like that, and there are companies out there that will charge you, and they will help you, and they'll redo your CV. Whenever I've had CVs and profiles from people that have paid for them, they're traditionally not that good, if I'm honest, because usually when you're paying a service like that, they may understand CVs and things, but they don't understand health and safety. They don't understand what it is that you guys do and what we're looking for when we're recruiting. So my advice would be don't go to anyone that wants to charge you for it. Any recruitment company, you know, obviously come to us, but any recruitment company would do that for you and should be able to offer advice. And like I said, personal branding is, other than safety, my favorite subject. So I'm absolutely happy to have this discussion one-on-one with everyone, but not tomorrow, because I've got a day off tomorrow.
Be careful what you wish for. I'm pleased we're joined with one of my committee members and colleague, Stuart. Stuart, do you have a question?
I do. My question is, how much is being authentic important to your personal branding?
It's everything. Absolutely everything. And actually, yeah, thank you for bringing that up. A very good point that I should have mentioned. People buy from people. You don't want to create a brand that isn't you, because people see through it really, really quickly. The whole point about personal branding, it's just amplifying what you already do. It's not doing anything massively different. It's just showing people who you are. And that's why I think as safety professionals, we're in such a unique unique position to be able to do this so easily, because you have so much content. You do so many great things that we can already talk about. You already have to get engagement and buy-in internally. You know, you've got a lot of the skills that it takes to create a strong personal brand. It's just, like I said earlier, about thinking about it differently. But authenticity, 100%, it has to be you. It has to be you. People will see through you instantly.
Yeah, and another question is, what are the biggest downfall of getting it wrong? How do you get back? Do you get back when you get it wrong?
It's tough, and it will happen. You will get things wrong. That's a lot of people's big fear with this sort of stuff, is that they're going to get a negative response. They're going to get people arguing with them. First off, a little bit of controversy, it's never a bad thing, because it does promote engagement. It's okay for people to debate and have different opinions, as long as it's respectful, it's professional. I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with that. If you do get things wrong, hold your hands up and say, I got it wrong. Again, it's the authenticity. People know that we muck up sometimes. You know, it's okay. But the halo effect will protect you from a lot of that once you get to a certain point. Once you get to a certain point, you have the ability to say things that are a little bit more controversial, and people will probably let you get away with it because they like you and they know that you know what you're talking about. So there can be negative implications. If you're worried about that, just start really, really slowly. If you're doing opinion pieces, unless you're going to come out and say something horrifically racist or misogynistic, you're going to be okay. You're just talking about your opinion about a safety subject. You're not really going to have much problem with that. One of the things I was told when I did the TED Talk training was the reason people get scared about sharing about public speaking is because you think people are going to needle at you and say you're wrong or I didn't like that. Most people are nice. Most people don't want to have an argument with you. Most people want to just have a conversation. So as long as we remember that, we're respectful, and you are prepared to hold your hands up sometimes and just say, look, okay, that wasn't quite right, but I've taken it all on board, you shouldn't have a problem.
I think one of the best things to get into this in the first place is to, number one, whether you're on LinkedIn or whether you're on Twitter, add some followers, people that you respect, who are rock stars, and maybe send them a message and just agree or disagree with what they're saying politely and get a conversation going. And it almost leads you into thinking, maybe I can do a little bit of that myself. But you start getting a feel for it. You kind of, you know, with the Twitter or with LinkedIn, or I tend not to do Facebook, but with the professional sites, you do get that feeling that if you just try to give a little, you get a lot. And I think
absolutely. You've got a good handle on it, Stuart. You know what you're talking about. That's completely right. It's a really easy way to start. It's just conversations. That's all this is. It's conversations and engagement. I think a lot of people forget that aspect of it. They'll go on LinkedIn and they create a profile and then they sit there and wait for someone to talk to them. And that, you know, that's not what's going to work. You need to put yourself out there. You need to speak to people. You need to start that engagement. It's exactly the same as you would do in your health and safety role. You have to go and talk to people.
Yeah. There's a good question by Gemma. Is the halo effect as a twofold thing? Because yes, it's good for your personal branding, but on the other side, you've got to be aware of cognitive biases out there when you're dealing with people.
Yeah, absolutely, very true. There's a lot of reading material out there on the halo effect. So if it's something you're interested in, I'd advise going to have a look at it. That was literally just a little smidge to show you how it can work. But I'm, you know, again, this all just boils down to human behaviour. That's what this is, and hopefully in health and safety, you are usually fairly good at dealing with human behaviors and you know, understanding people and why they do things. So, but yeah, there's plenty of stuff you could go and have a look at out there.
Chris, do you want to continue with the Q&As?
Sure, I've got a question for you, Laura. It's difficult times with COVID and unemployment rising, and you know, an uncertain future for many people. And every day we come across colleagues who are concerned about the futures, or are out of work, unemployed, looking for work, and some people may be in despair over that. Have you got any sort of words of wisdom? Where's the starting point? Where do you go to get started, to start looking for a new career path?
It's a very good question. Yeah, it's a really interesting time at the moment. And, you know, I like I said, I've been in HSE Recruitment for 10 years now. I have been through a recession and stuff with them previously, but this is different. It's not something we've dealt with previously. I understand there will be some despair, and there'll be people who have lost their roles and are struggling at the moment. The good overall news is that health and safety is still going quite well in comparison to a lot of industries. Health and safety isn't going anywhere. I think the COVID crisis has really just demonstrated to a lot of companies how important it is to have someone on side that knows what they're doing and can set good strategies and can support them in these sort of things. Again, I would just encourage you to reach out and have conversations with people. The health and safety community is a really great community. People are always happy to help you. You know, talk to us, talk to recruiters, but go on LinkedIn and find people that you are impressed by, people that you think you'd like to be like, and go and have a conversation with them and ask them for some support. When I've spoken to people previously about trying to get into the health and safety industry, that's something I've advised for them as well, is go and seek out people that are doing what you want to do and have those conversations. And, you know, people will help you. They will offer you advice. They will offer you shadowing, or, you know, voluntary work, or things like that. There is a lot of help out there, but you do have to seek it out. You have to be quite proactive in that side of things. But again, always really happy to chat. If someone is struggling with that at the moment, get in touch and I will see what I can do personally to help you.
I think just on that, the reason why the Manchester branch and other IOSH branches across the country exist is really that support network. And, you know, people need to take time. If people watching the webinar haven't engaged with their local branches, then I would absolutely recommend that you do, because there are some really nice people there. There's some really helpful people, and there are people who are more than happy to share and mentor and the like. So
exactly.
And for all you members out there who are watching this today, and you know of other members who aren't as engaged, get into the ribs, get them out here, get them looking at what we're doing, because, you know, you've been here a few times. We've put a few webinars on, and we've got some great ones coming up. So tell everybody this is where it's happening.
So Laura, you mentioned about personal branding for the individual health and safety professional and that. Health and safety over the years has took a good knock. We're always seen in bad light sometimes, and sometimes we're not, but more often than not we're challenged. How do we as a profession change that? I mean, I was interested in the Merlin stuff and that. Is this a new approach? Is this something that we really need to start looking at?
Yeah, it 100% is. It's something I'm very, very passionate about. You know, our vision and our motto at Executive Network Group, which is our parent company, is making recruitment better. And I've always taken that to heart and made it my mission to make health and safety better as part of that. You know, we've all seen the news articles, the Daily Mail, health and safety, and look, public perception isn't great, but that's because they don't know a lot about what we do. When I first came into health and safety, though, 10 years ago, I would say the perception of health and safety was significantly worse 10 years ago. We've come leaps and bounds in the last decade in bringing that up and getting people thinking about it, not as something bad, but as something that's going to help us all. And this personal branding is a huge part of it. You know, at HSE Recruitment, we made a commitment about 7 or 8 years ago that we would only share positive news, because there's enough of it out there. You don't need to see, you know, the fines and the accidents and things all the time. What we need to see is the great stuff that you guys are doing. That's what's going to change public perception. It's still going to be an uphill slog. You know, we're not going to unfortunately change the Daily Mail's mind anytime soon, but we can certainly start moving in that direction, and all of this will help. The more that we do, the more that we talk, the more that we share, the better the industry will become, and the better the perception will become overall.
Laura, we've got David Wilson's put a great post on. When does it get too much? When does being in everybody, you know, being a rock star, when does it get too much and you risk turning people off?
I don't think you can, personally. If someone is not engaged with you, yeah, they'll disengage. They'll stop following you, and that's fine. That's their own personal opinion. But I very rarely see that happen. I mean, I understand in health and safety we do see a lot of the same faces, you know, talking a lot, and that's why I'm keen to do this sort of stuff and bring other people up, so we're not just hearing from the same couple of people all the time. But that doesn't mean they still don't have something to say. So yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about that. When you get to global superstardom, we'll have another conversation, and then we'll figure it out then.
I want you to be my tour manager.
Happily.
Okay, well, we've had some fantastic feedback, some fantastic questions. We are going to close the session a little bit shorter. We do have a little bit of feedback that we'd like off our webinar attendees. Just whilst that is being shown on screen, our next session is on the 25th of August. Andrew Prothero is from Director of Risk and Resilience. He's going to be talking about risk and resilience, and I'm sure it'll be another engaging and exciting sort of session for everybody, and we'd really be delighted if you join us. I have put the link in the chat, but we will be emailing and publishing it in the normal way. Laura, it's been absolutely brilliant. Like I said, the love for you in the chat has been amazing. I will get it printed off. I'm sure Dave Foy will have a bottle of champagne on its way to you, or something, or some chocolates even.
Yeah, I take bribes, Dave, thanks.
And I'm going to take away this squeeze the bum cheeks. I think I'm going to learn from that. I think I'm going to keep that as my phrase of the day. Squeeze the bum cheeks. So, on behalf of Manchester and their district, Laura, thank you for returning. Just outstanding is what I can say. And please, long may you continue doing what you're doing. And I'm sure you're going to get lots of contact from today as well. So, from myself and Stuart and Carrie in the background, IOSH, please stay safe, everybody, and we'll catch you on the next one.